All right. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
All right. Three, two, one. Hi, welcome back to Steel City Screams. My name is Ashley Ray,
And I'm Brenda, am I?
and today we have a very, very special guest, the beautiful Jackie Kelly.
Hi. Thank you for having me, guys.
Welcome.
We're
Thanks
so
so
happy to
much.
have you here.
I'm happy to
I
be here.
genuinely just adore you, and working with you on Macabre, which of course we'll get into, was just so fun. And you're just so talented. Like, girl. Ah,
Oh, I'm fooling you guys. I'm fooling you.
it's all about the acting.
Yeah. I try. I try very hard to not be bad, at least. So
Mood.
I'm glad I
Understandable.
fooled you. But yeah, I loved working with you guys too. It's been a while now. That was like what, 7, 8 months ago?
Yeah, it's in
Ah,
September, it'll be a year,
Oh my god. I don't like
which is
that.
no, it's so weird because it almost like to me sometimes it doesn't feel like a year and then sometimes it's like wow, I haven't seen these people in so long.
No.
um
literally.
yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about Macabre Mountain, but first let's talk about you. You're an actress, but you also do some directing and writing too, right?
I do. I admittedly haven't directed something in a very long time. It's been about 10-ish years, but I'm a writer. It's actually what I have my college degree in, is screenwriting. And I'm glad you brought it up because I'm actually in the process of whittling away at a new feature script right now. I've got one draft done. It's not where I want it to be, but that's, they say writing is rewriting. So yeah, chipping away at it. Writing's hard, man.
It is.
It's really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I struggle with it and I struggle forming the script too sometimes because I am always so focused on how like does this sound like how someone would really talk? Is this a conversation someone would really have? I think that's always been the hardest part for me.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Like for me, I feel like it depends on like the tone and the subject matter of the script because I always feel like that's an argument and a criticism I see of film all the time as like this would never happen in real life.
Yes.
And the way I feel about that is like most most of us don't live lives that people would want to watch movies of. So I feel like depending on the script, dialogue for me doesn't have to be completely true to life. Um, because nobody wants to watch a movie about me like I just did my dishes for like a half hour, piling up in the sink. Like nobody wants to watch that movie. But come on, like all of our lives are kind of boring when we're not, unless we're like on set, right? So
Right.
Exactly, yeah. So, did you always want to be in the film business, or was it just something that came to you a little later that you decided you wanted to do?
I would say that I knew that I wanted to make movies in some capacity. I didn't know what that meant for me, like what position I'd want to hold on a set, but probably around the age of 15. That's when
Okay.
I like, I mean, I always liked movies when I was a little kid too, but around 15 was when I started really exploring horror and more underground, subversive type stuff. And it
Hmm.
was kind of this really cool experience because, when you're a kid, you just watch like what your parents put in front of you. And I never like knew that you could make movies that were so like messed up, right? And it's kind of when I fell in love with storytelling and filmmaking was when I saw all these filmmakers that were doing like really like grimy stuff, right? I didn't anticipate on being an actor initially. I've been acting since I was like 12, but I did mostly theater for a very long time, for almost a decade. Um, and then when I went off to college, I had a bunch of people asking me if I was going to pursue drama or theater, and I was like completely opposed to it because I was like, no, I'm going to write and direct, and now I'm now I'm a lowly actor, so I'm
Well,
everyone's puppet.
it's cool though because you can do all of it. You can write your own stuff and act in it, which you have done.
Yeah. And
Yeah, so that's really cool. And yeah, and it has horror. So you talked about horror. Is that mostly what you've always wanted to do?
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, that's not to say I don't like other films, but most of what I enjoy is genre fare for sure. Whether it's a horror film or just like a very, very dark drama, I definitely prefer like the genre side of things. I always have. And I don't
Yeah.
think I'm gonna grow out of it if I haven't by now. So I just turned 30, so I'm
Same here,
still
girl.
a horror nerd. So I don't think it's
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah, I think that's the same for all three of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool that you found some of these like underground horror films, because I definitely have watched those too, and have kind of
Mhm.
there's like its own little community of
Yeah.
people who
Well,
so
yeah, I was
it's
gonna say, Ashley, I saw you posting pictures somewhat recently of you with Fred Vogel.
yeah, I love
And
Fred.
yeah, and I'm like, wow, Ashley's into that messed
Yeah.
up stuff.
Yeah, I
Fred's a
love
great guy. Fred's a really great guy.
yeah, I would love to work with him. And
I would too.
yeah. He's always at the conventions, and we've just gotten to like know each other over the years.
That's cool. Because he's in your neck of the woods, isn't he? Pittsburgh area?
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe we should make a film like that.
Oh my God, that's dark. That's I feel like August Underground. That's like I'd put it in like top five, like most dark things I've ever seen.
For
You
sure.
know?
Yeah. hmm
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting stuff. I remember the first time I saw it, Mortem. I was like maybe 16 years old, and I was teaching swim lessons at the time, and I watched it before I went in to go teach a bunch of little kids how to swim.
Yeah.
And I just remember
Gosh.
sitting in the pool, like it was horrifying to me. But
Right,
good
right.
stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well then, yeah, let's jump into a little bit about Macabre Mountain. So, we all three worked on that this past September. So, can you, I guess without spoilers, tell us a little bit about your character and just, I mean, your time on set?
Yeah. So my character, I get typecast a lot. I either play like a punk chick or just like a crazy psycho bitch. And in Macabre Mountain, I would say I'm the crazy psycho bitch, which is always fun, right? But I definitely play one of the villains in the movie, and she's evil, but the way it was kind of interesting because the way they dressed me, did hair and makeup and wardrobe, it was almost like femme fatale, kind of like she was kind of
Mhm.
sultry in a way, which is always an interesting contrast. But yeah, I really enjoyed working on that film with you guys and the rest of the team. Everyone was super fun. There's no drama on that film, at least not when I was there. That's always refreshing, man. You're like, was there? I mean, we don't have to go into it now.
No, no, no.
It was like really
Honestly, no.
refreshing because like everyone was
Yeah.
like, and that's not to say that every film that does occur, but like tensions just run high on a set. Um,
Mhm.
because you got a lot of different personalities coming in and you're working long hours and you don't have hardly any days off, if any. So yeah, it was a really fun experience because everyone got along. It was great.
So you and I kind of were together on set. Not I don't want to give too much away about, any character interactions, but I definitely think you and Bryn probably worked a little more together than we did. Am I right?
Well, me and Bren didn't have any scenes together.
No, but she was crew. So you
Yeah,
guys kind
she
of
was
saw
really
each
good.
other a little more.
Hmm.
Yeah. And well,
Really
Bryn,
good. She was
go
working
ahead, sorry.
hard.
I was busting my
Good
ass,
word.
but I loved every minute of it. And you know, funny enough, like I haven't been given the assistant director kind of title on other sets. So technically, I guess you could say, like, this was my first movie as an assistant director. But all in all, if you kind of follow any of the other movies I've done, I did like the same amount of work on all these other movies I've worked on. So again, technically, it's like it wasn't my first movie being an assistant director, but it was my first movie being labeled, I guess is the word to say, as an assistant director. And I really love it because like you, I write, I direct, I act, I do everything, and I love doing it all. I don't want to just do one thing, and I just love every part of being on set. I crave for it constantly, and I don't know if you guys get like this, but after being off set, it's like you get depressed because
Oh,
you're like,
yeah,
"Oh
100%.
my gosh, like,
Yeah.
what am I gonna do? Like,
Mhm.
I need to be on set, like, again, like, right now. I can't function." Like,
Yeah,
because 'cause
that
you're go, go,
post-set
go.
depression is real for me too,
It's
for sure.
so real, and it's friggin' rough. At least it was for me after I left Macabre, and talked to some other people from set about it too, and they were like, "Yeah, it really hit me," and I was like, "Oh, this is terrible."
Well, it's just such an immersive experience when you're making a film where everyone is basically living together. I mean, we all had our own hotel rooms, but if I shoot a film, like I'm in St. Louis, and if I shoot a film locally, I come home every night and I sleep in my bed.
Mhm.
And so the experience is just different when like you see the cast and crew all day, you work with them all day, you eat dinner with them, you wake up, you eat breakfast with them. Everything you do is with the same group of people. And so it's actually a shock to the system, I think, when you go back and you don't have that, like, because there is a family element of making an independent film for sure. And it's arguably my favorite thing about making movies. I think
Mhm.
you can form bonds with people really quickly. There's people I've known for 10, 20 years, and then yet some of the people I've known on set that I've worked with for a month, I feel like I've known them for longer, because you're just constantly around them for that period of time.
Exactly.
that
It's really cool.
that statement, it makes me want to cry. I'm not gonna cry, but yeah, after, because Macabre Mountain was the first film that I ever worked on that wasn't local. Like everything else I ever worked on, it was I came for a few hours and then I went home.
Right.
Or when I was in college, went back to my dorm and it was just, regular life almost. But this for me, it just felt different. And it is, I felt like I knew everybody like longer than I ever did. And so it was like it was, which I was actually talking to someone who was part of Macabre Mountain not too long ago. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, it's weird. Like I got so depressed. And she was like, no, that's normal. Like people go through that. And I was like, it's so weird because I've never gone through something like that before. And but this film and everybody who was a part of it just meant so much to me. And
Mhm.
it's crazy, but and so like this, I'm so happy that the three of us are doing this together and getting to see each other again, and you know, it's awesome.
It is awesome. I think that's part of why I have a tendency to get really anxious if I don't have like two or three projects lined up back to back because I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna be sad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be sad.
That's
I'll
such a
be
big
upset.
mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was emotional.
Contemplating life, man. It
You
is.
guys.
I'll say this over and over. I think truthfully, we all left that set as a family. We were just all we took care of each other and we had fun. The days were, I mean, they were pretty long days, but I don't think we ever wrapped very late. I'm not a morning
No.
person, so I was like 6:30. Oh God. But I got my ass up and
Yeah.
it was just nice to be on a set where there really was no drama. It
It
was
was
like you
awesome,
were
man.
hanging with your friends for 2 weeks. And I
It
was
was
like,
awesome.
hell yeah.
Yeah. And
um
West Virginia was weird and cool, and I've never
Yes.
made a movie there. I'd never even been to West Virginia. So
that's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask if you ever filmed there before, if you've ever been there.
no. I don't hear about a lot of indie stuff getting made in West Virginia. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's kind of a cool thing about shooting in West Virginia is it doesn't the town that we filmed in doesn't look like a town you'd see in most indie movies. It's got a
Hmm.
very like classic kind of nostalgic feel about it, which is I mean the every shooting location that we had was fantastic.
Yeah. And I was a
Mhm.
little jealous because you went to see the Mothman statue.
Yeah, I visited Mothman. It was awesome.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go. And then I saw you posted the picture and I was like, oh, Jackie went.
It was awesome. See, that's one of the perks to like, because I play a supporting role in this film. I'm not one of the leads, like Miss Ashley, and that's one of the perks to not playing a lead in something. If you got times to explore the local flavor. So it was
Mhm.
cool. Yeah, I drove to Point Pleasant. It's like what 2.5 hours
Yeah, I
away.
think it was like 2 hours, something like
Yeah,
that.
it was cool. I just like I think cryptid lore is really fun, and I've heard about Point Pleasant and the how much they embrace the lore for many years, and I've always wanted to go to the museum. So I was like, dang, if I'm out here, I gotta go. So
Yeah, might as well.
it was awesome.
Absolutely.
Now you got to film, so a lot a lot of your scenes at the haunted house that we filmed at?
I had a little bit, yeah. I had like one full day, I think, where all of my stuff was in the haunted house, and that was so cool, guys. I've never shot in an operative haunted house before.
Yeah.
Right?
It was really, really cool. It was the kind of haunted house that, I mean, I like haunted houses in general, but it felt very mom and pop. Like it wasn't like a bunch of big animatronics and stuff, which is cool in its own right. But I kind of like those more like humble, smaller haunted houses too. There's like this labor of love aspect to them. Um,
Mhm.
did you did you guys go there at all when it was open to walk through or
Bryn did. I didn't get a
thought I
chance to.
saw okay. Was it fun?
Yeah. So Robert actually came down for like 2 days over a weekend to do a meet and greet for the movie and whatnot. And so I was like, hey dad, you want to go meet Robert and check out this haunted house before I move? And he was like, yeah. So we went down and I saw Robert and everything, which was awesome. And then we went through the haunted house and it was pretty damn good. Like I
Was
haven't
it?
been to a haunted house in a really long time that actually like scared me at certain points.
That's
I
awesome.
I feel like nowadays it's become more kid like, and I get that there are a lot of people that bring their kids and you don't want to terrify the kids, I guess. But you know what? Like
I
a
say
haunted
scare them
house is
young. Scare them young.
true that. And it's like I want to be scared.
Right.
Scare the shit out of me,
Right.
please. And you had to sign a waiver before you went in because they do touch you.
Oh, no kidding.
So I don't really have a problem with that as long as they're not literally throwing me to the ground and like beating me up, which obviously doesn't happen. Um, but you know, it, I have to say it was a really good attraction, all of them,
I
and they
don't think
take
I've
time to go
ever
through.
I don't think I've ever been to a haunt where the actors were allowed to touch you. I worked at a haunt one year, a long time
Mhm.
ago. We weren't allowed to touch anyone.
Yeah, me either. I've never been to one either. We have them like in the Pittsburgh area.
Mhm.
The Scare House, they have that's like a big one in Pittsburgh, and there's called it's called the basement, and you have to sign a waiver because they can touch you, they can shock you, different stuff like that. But I've been to quite a few haunted houses, and I've seen people get kicked out for touching the actors.
Yeah, that's a thing that for sure happened to me when I was working. Because, and I think part of it is I think most people don't have bad intentions. I think it's just like a fight or flight thing. Like you jump out at them
Yeah.
and their just natural response to that is to like shove you
Yeah.
away. But it kind of sucked, honestly. Like I didn't really like working there because it was yeah, it was just people are wild cards, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You get thrust around by people a lot in
I
there. It's an
think
interesting experience.
I might have talked about this in the first episode me and Bryn did, but I went through a haunted house once and I accidentally headbutted a guy and one of the actors, and I felt so bad. And I don't know what happened or how, but
Oh my
it
God.
and I was like, and there's people who are like, keep moving. And I was like coming up to this guy, I was like, oh my God, are you okay? Like,
Oh, you're so nice.
and he just literally just descended back into a
Into the
corner.
darkness.
Yeah.
Ascended.
He's
And
probably used to it though, you know?
yeah, and I was
But he
young, so
is.
I was with my parents, and I was like, Mom, Dad, we're gonna get kicked out. What if I hurt him? And I don't know whatever happened to him, but
Oh my
so
gosh.
I'm sure he's
Yeah.
okay.
hopefully he's okay now after all these
Didn't
years.
scar him for life.
Yeah.
Calls like his mom, I got headbutted at work today. I don't know
Oh,
what to do.
he's like, I'm not making enough money to be getting headbutted.
Yeah, and I mean, like with some of these haunted attractions, because I've been to one other one when I came to Georgia like a couple years ago for a convention. A lot of them only have like little, I guess you can say, rooms or smaller attractions that aren't attached to the main attraction of the haunted house. Whereas, like with Maniac Mountain, um, it was like the whole hitting my mic. It was the whole attraction that like they can touch you. So that was definitely like the difference between like, if you went to Scare House, you can only go into the basement attraction and get touched. The main attraction, they don't touch you.
Okay. That's cool though. I wish I could have. I mean, it's a bit of a hike for me to get out there. It's like a 15-hour drive or something.
Oh, that's
So I
nuts.
probably won't make it out there, but it was cool. It was really cool. I enjoyed it. Bucket
Well,
list experience shooting a
we ever
haunted.
get Macabre 2 running, you
We're
let
heading
me
back.
know.
We'll have to shoot like right before they open for the season. So then like
Mhm.
we could have a wrap party like in the
Right.
haunted house. Pretty cool.
That would be awesome.
That would be so great.
Before we move on, my dog is going crazy and I'm gonna let him out real quick. I am so sorry.
You're good. I don't know where my dog is.
For sure.
That's
So
mean.
sorry
You're good.
to rudely interrupt.
That was rude.
It was.
So rude, Ashley. Just like,
I
you know
said I
what?
was sorry.
Canceled.
Hashtag canceled.
Oh gosh.
So something that we have kind of like to do with what we've talked about doing with our guests is talking about either like a specific movie or game or band, something like that. And you picked one of, I'd say, definitely one of my favorite movies that I've watched this year, which is kind of how we talked about getting into some deep, dark stuff, but Speak No Evil. And and Bryn, you said you watched it last night for the first time.
Yeah.
So, Jackie, what made you like pick this movie? What is it about this movie that you just
So I have this thing where all of my favorite movies make me feel like shit. And Speak No Evil made me feel so depressed. Like I found it to be so upsetting, and I genuinely
Yeah.
enjoy that in a film because like I feel like art is meant to evoke a reaction, and that's just the reaction that I like to have evoked in me is discomfort and ick. And that movie, it really went for it, and I just really appreciate it because I feel like, and it's an independent film, it's a foreign film, and a lot of times I feel like you do have to go to the indie or the foreign stuff to find that really subversive content. But I just thought it was really refreshing because it just really pushed the envelope and it went to places that were really upsetting. It didn't hold back. There were no gimmicks. I just loved it. I loved the performances in it. I just think it's a really artful film, and I love what I view to be the central message of the film. What were your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, so I should
I'm
say
interested.
I should say, by the way, there will be spoilers, so we can talk about anything about the movie.
Okay.
And for people who haven't seen it, it's these two couples who are vacationing in Tuscany, I believe,
Mhm.
and they kind of meet each other, and the one guy saying he's a doctor, and um all these things, and you just know that something is I feel like from the beginning you know something's a little off. And then but they become really good friends on the trip, and then Bjorn and Luis and Agnes, their daughter, receive a letter in the mail from, and I'm so bad with
I
names.
never remember those names.
Patrick, Karen, and Abel, I believe.
I think, yeah, I'm pretty
Sounds
positive.
right.
Yeah, inviting them to come over, which kind of, it's funny because as what I thought watching this movie, and I kind of read about this too, is we're seeing it, so we're like, and we know it's like a thriller movie, it's a horror movie, so we're like, oh, we know something bad is going to happen, don't do that. But in reality, it is kind of like, if you think about it, well, you did meet these people on vacation, you got along really well. In reality, it doesn't seem so weird to have a couple that you got along with invite you over to stay at their house. So, I did see like a lot of comments about the movie where people are like, "Oh, they're so stupid"
Yeah,
and stuff like that. Um, but then I kind of thought about it because there were some things in the movie I'd be like, "Oh, I would never do that. I would never do that."
right.
But it is kind of normal. I think it's something that,
Yeah.
In my opinion, that was the message that the film was trying to say, though. And this, I don't know. I'm not the fucking director, but I felt like that's what the movie was about. Was um, it is just culturally and socially acceptable for us to, as humans, to not raise issue about other people's behaviors and to just be yes men and yes women. And to me, it's a film about these social niceties and how we agree to things that we shouldn't agree to. We're mistreated just because we're like, I don't want to offend them. And
right?
to me, it was
Mhm.
just an exaggeration of that, how we're so afraid of hurting someone's feelings or offending someone. And I just thought it was a brilliant way to capture it, because I think we've all been in positions where, I mean, I'm sure we've all been in positions where we've agreed to something that we shouldn't have, like something that was just stupid or unsafe or whatever it might be. And
Yeah,
we're doing that because we're like, I don't want to hurt their feelings.
yeah.
So I just thought it was an interesting thing to make a movie about. I love that.
And you can
Mhm.
tell Luis, the wife, is a little more like standoffish about the situation, kind of more protective, like, I'm not so sure, but the husband, Bjorn, he really wants to.
Hmm.
And they were having dinner with another family friend, and they kind of like encouraged them, like, oh, it's not that far, it's not a long drive and everything like that. So then it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, it'll only be the weekend, the kids get along, they're excited to see each other, so it's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And it seems like that would be something normal that would happen.
Right. There's a
And,
really interesting line in that scene when they're having dinner with their friends before they decide to make this trip. And they're kind of going back and forth, like, should we do it? I don't know. And someone from the other couple says something to the effect of, it would be rude not to go. And I just think that's such an interesting moment, because we, the viewer, were like, why would that be rude? But
right.
like in the universe of this film, it's like, oh, you're right. That would be like a really mean thing to do. And it's like, when I think about it, I wouldn't meet up with someone that I knew from like a vacation and like stay at their house. Like, I
Mm-mm.
don't know, personal, maybe, I don't know. I've never met that person, but I've never
Yeah.
been asked. So who knows?
I think it really depends on how much time you spend with those people that you meet on a vacation. Like if it's a couple months, maybe. But if
Right.
you're talking only a few weeks, you're just touching the surface and you really have no idea what you're going into.
Right.
So the one thing, and it's a classic horror line in my opinion, is when the other couple that they were having dinner with says like, what's the worst that could happen?
Right. Then that's when you
Well,
know everything's gonna be terrible.
right. And see, so I enjoyed the film. There were aspects of it, like I was mainly laying in my bed last night and I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Every like 5 seconds after like Abel opened his mouth and
Mhm.
showed that he like didn't have a tongue. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is like, it's making sense, but it's not making sense. And, you know, after they have dinner together, well, actually, let me backtrack a smidge too. The first thing that made me unsettled was the fact that they had a babysitter come and didn't tell them, but then
Mhm.
tried to play it off by saying, oh, I thought I told you. No, Louise, I don't think is that dumb. Like, because she was like, hold on a minute. What do you mean we're not bringing the kids? I don't even know this guy. But then they still went. And I'm like, I would never leave my kid with somebody I don't know, even if these people trusted him. Like, you still barely know this family. So I'm just like, what? It was just like like in horror movies, a lot of times too, at the end of the day, they do things that aren't complete common sense and it pisses the viewers off because you're like, well, obviously I saw this coming, but god damn it, like, why can't these people just be a little bit smarter and realistic? Like, is but I want to take it piece by piece. I don't want to jump ahead because I can go on a spiel about the rest of the movie.
Well, that goes back to my argument about because that is a common thing where people are like, stop making bad decisions. Why didn't you make this decision? It's like, well, if the character makes the decision that you would make, now you don't have a horror movie. And then we just get
Right.
back to like, oh, they found themselves in a sticky situation. They got out of it. The end. Like, I don't know. It doesn't. I know like that is an interesting criticism of this film specifically because if you look at like the IMDb and like Letterboxd reviews, it's like just ripe with people that are like these people are idiots, and I'm like, you're right, they are.
They
But
are, but at the same time, you know what? Really, really sitting down and thinking about it, it's not unrealistic for something like this to happen the
right,
way it happened. I mean, there's certain things where I'm like, I don't know what adult would decide to kidnap a child and cut their tongue out so they wouldn't speak, which is where, the title comes in, Speak No Evil. Um, but this is stuff that could actually really happen. It wasn't very unrealistic. It just pisses people off because you're like, why? Like, this could have ended when they
this
left
is
the first time.
slightly off subject, kind of. But did you guys see that doc that came out on Netflix maybe 4 or 5 years ago called Abducted in Plain Sight?
Yes.
That's a true story. And the whole time you're watching it and you're like, why? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why would you do this? And like, way more so than any fictional movie. You're like, why are they letting this happen? And
Yeah.
it's a documentary. And it's just like, side note, yeah, the most infuriating film I think I've ever seen because it's like apparently real.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and
It's crazy.
it is uh, Jackie, I think how you said it, we people are so afraid of offending people, and even when Bjorn and Luis get to the house, one of the first things is the Patrick tries to serve Luis meat and she's a vegetarian, and it's and
Terrible.
in reality, like it's easy to maybe forget someone's a vegetarian or something like that. But he was just like pushing it and pushing it. And
Mhm.
it was like she was like, I don't know what to do because you don't want to offend them. They made this meal for you, but also you're a vegetarian there and
Right.
he's not respecting that.
Right.
And so that's where you start to see little things, and I guess in reality that's kind of minor to everything, that happens, but it's kind of the buildup of how they almost in a way sort of start with little things and then build up almost like,
Mhm.
well, this is how we are. We accept you for the, like, and Luis, and especially Luis, knows something isn't right.
Yeah, it's a really, really intense viewing experience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me uncomfortable. Even from the very beginning, even when it is just stuff like the vegetarian thing or just these little moments where there's no violence or anything it just makes you feel like uncomfortable, like
Yeah.
you just feel like bad. And
Yeah.
I really like that about the movie.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Bryn, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good, girl. Well, and I was about to say too, like when another thing that happened when they were eating dinner at the restaurant, and he was just like being very passive aggressive to Louise, and is like, "Oh, but you're a pescatarian. Like, isn't that still harmful for the environment?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Why are you getting mean?
No.
Like,
Yeah, like,
chill."
sir, who are you?
Like seriously, like he is very passive aggressive. And then you move forward a little bit and you just see how abusive he is to Abel, and
Mhm.
he can't really speak very well cuz his tongue was cut out. Um and you're just like I would never I would be like Louise in that situation and be like, I cannot stand here and let you talk to your child like that. Like
Mhm.
you, and of course, then it bleeds into what you've been saying too. It's like you don't want to be judgmental, but it's also like Luis does stand up and say, like, I can't do that. Like, this is too much and this is terrible. Like, I want to leave.
Right. Like it's not just a difference of like opinion or like a different parenting style. It's like your morals aren't aligned. And like at what point
Exactly.
do you step in and do something about it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like especially nowadays, politically and socially, everything's just like so fucking like polarizing. And it's like I'm just staying in my lane, baby. I'm like, I'm not, you know what I mean?
Me,
And
girl. Me.
that's
I just
why I think this was the perfect time for this film to come out,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
because it makes sense, and
Yep.
that and it is like, I don't think any of us are parents, but I think too, even not being a parent and seeing some of the decisions, you're like, oh my gosh, if I was a parent, I would never do that.
Right.
But
Even
it
without
is,
being a parent, I would not stand there. I would honestly be like, I'm just gonna, take him out of the room because this is just not okay. Like
Right.
yeah.
that would just anger me.
Yeah. So we see different little things where, they just get a babysitter and kind of like, oh, you can trust him. It's fine. Like he's great with the kids and everything like that. And you can see them kind of being like, oh, is this okay? But then they see how good he is with Agnes. So it's kind of like, okay. And then how we were talking about, we get to the restaurant and Patrick's being very passive aggressive. Um, they and he's drinking a lot, and they start kind of, like dancing a little too like too much for the other couple, making them uncomfortable. And then they have they Patrick tricks Bjorn into paying the bill.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah,
Bruh.
he sure does.
He was like, well, you had too much fun tonight. More like, Patrick, you had too much fun tonight. And now you just flipped the script and somehow managed to get him to pay the bill. And I was like, This is a shady
Yeah,
motherfucker.
he's a bad
My
dude.
gosh.
He's a bad dude.
And
He
then
is.
the drive home where, he was clearly drunk and swerving around, and that I think that is a real thing I've heard people talk about, is like getting in the car with someone drunk, and it's
Right.
a bad idea. And thankfully, and Luis was kind of the one being like, hey, turn the music down, and getting upset. And then um she was obviously upset. And then when they got home, I think it was, yeah, she was in the shower, and Patrick just comes in while she's taking a shower. So it's like these Patrick and Karen have absolutely no boundaries. They don't mind
Mhm.
just invading people's privacy, um, screaming at their kid, being abusive towards their kid in front of people. And it's uncomfortable for the viewers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another big theme for this movie is boundaries need to be set. And
Mm-hmm.
it's important to set boundaries with people, because otherwise that's where the discomfort comes in and not knowing what to do. And then you're not trying to be judgmental, but it's there's a lot that just kind of bleeds in together. But another big thing definitely is like they didn't set boundaries with them at all. And then when it was all said and done, they were like, well, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. Oh, so now we're gaslighting? Like, come on, dude.
Right. Right. I'm sorry you interpreted it that way. Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, I love when people say that. And that is such a thing that people do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
especially the one part that really, really bothered me is when Agnes was crying for Luis and Bjorn, and
Oh.
Pat or the I forget her name already, and I've been saying it, Karen, um takes Agnes to her and Patrick's room, and he doesn't have any clothes on. And that was when I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like,
It's so gross. Yeah.
so
So
gross.
gross.
And I mean, everything before that was bad, but that was like a whole level of crossing the line.
And then she tried to guilt trip her and was like, well, where were you? Where were you? And I was like, she's either going to say what was happening or she's not. And it's like, regardless, like, just take her back to Abel's room, and then Luis will come and get her later. And
Mm-hmm.
then that was a huge boundary that was crossed. And it was just so inappropriate because that's not her parents. And even if it was, I don't think that a mother or father is going to be butt ass naked in front of their kid.
No, that's
No.
weird.
So it was just not okay on so many levels and so inappropriate.
But I think
And
that's
that,
what's interesting about the characters, the villains, is that
uh-huh.
it's like they enjoy it. It's like
Mhm.
they're delighting in the fact that they're making this other couple so terribly uncomfortable. That's like part of
Mhm.
how, like, their sadism is that
Literally.
they're like getting off on just making people like feel crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that damn bunny.
Oh, the
God
damn bunny.
damn bunny.
See, for me, that's the moment when you're like, come on, why are you going back there?
Yeah.
I think
Literally.
she leaves it at the house. Yeah.
And then it was under the damn seat.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Well,
For real.
you know what's funny about that is because so obviously after Luis finds their daughter in the other couple's bed, she wakes up Bjorn and she's like, we got to get out of here. And that's when they're driving, and Agnes is like, oh, my bunny. And but in the beginning, when they were in Tuscany, she lost the bunny too. And whenever Bjorn went to get it, Patrick was like, wow, that was a really heroic act of you. And Bjorn kind of laughed about it. He's like, no, really, that was really heroic for you to go back. And I think Bjorn almost he had like this weird, like almost like I think he saw Patrick as like an out of his boring life.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if I think maybe that had to do came into play and like just maybe being a better father. I don't know. But so that's when they turn around and to go get the bunny, the stuffed animal bunny, which we of course then later learn it's under the seat. And then that's when all the gaslighting begins because it's like, well, why would you leave? I'm sorry we do things differently. I'm sorry that, you could have just told us this. We're not rich. I'm sorry um your bed is too small and then the whole where were you about the daughter. So, and they kind of like rope them back in.
Mm-hmm.
It should just
And
Speak No Evil should just be called Gaslighting the Movie. Like that's the
yeah.
whole movie. It's just so uncomfortable because like nobody likes feeling like someone's gaslighting them, and it's just like a barrage, like a 90-minute barrage of people being gaslit, and
Yeah.
Yes.
it's awesome.
Yeah. And then kind of after that everything seems to be going okay. Um but what one of the interesting things is when Louise cuts her finger when they're
Um,
making dinner and Bjorn's like, "Oh, Patrick, can you take a look? You're a doctor." And he's like, "I'm not a doctor." And everybody's like, what do you mean? You told us you were a doctor." And he's like, "Oh, I told you that. I get insecure about things. I don't work." And it's like,
I don't. But he goes, I don't believe in work.
yeah.
Like, what the?
And that's like another thing, like, why would you I get sometimes people lie to make things a little, but that it's like it's another red flag. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
really in a house with people who you thought were totally different people. And then Karen like scolding Agnes at the table right in front of her parents, which if I was a parent, I could see Bryn's reaction now. I
Yeah, that
would
would piss me off.
lose.
I
Yeah.
would flip my shit like more than Louise did. I would be like, bitch, let me tell you something. That's my kid. Now we're gonna leave because I'm done. Like,
And
I'm done.
it's such a foreshadow for what's
Uh-huh.
to come, too.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm. Yeah, it is a great little moment that you don't really realize until you see the outcome of the film.
Yeah.
They're like essentially grooming this child, and because she plans to take her, and yeah, it's messed up. It's
Yeah.
messed up, man.
Especially, and to, kind of get really wrapped up here and, give our final reviews of it all, then we move forward to where how do you say the husband's name again?
Bjorn?
Bjorn. Yeah. So
I don't know if
he
I'm saying it right.
I think you might be.
You
I
are?
think you
Yeah.
are. So he wakes up because the TV's too loud, and then he goes outside. And I remember a little bit towards the beginning as well, like when Abel showed that he was missing his tongue or part of his tongue, he was looking in this like little shed thing. The doors were open, so he goes in and he goes upstairs and he sees, I want to say, hundreds of pictures with families and their kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they've kidnapped and killed families and all of these kids. What the fuck is like, what is wrong with these people? And then he goes and he finds Abel dead in the pool. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, dear Lord, please let these two kill these motherfuckers. I was just like, oh. And so they go to leave. The fucking car gets stuck. I don't. Oh. He goes to this house to try to get help. He goes back to the car because nobody was answering the door. Luis and Agnes are gone, and then Patrick pulls up, and I'm like, "Oh no, this is not going to end well." I just knew it wasn't going to end well from there because all he had to say was like, please don't hurt us. We just want to go home. And then that's when he was like, you just have to listen to what we say. And I'm like, damn. Then we see the babysitter again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, this is sketch. What's about to happen? They cut her tongue, Agnes's tongue off with scissors and take her. And I was like, I'm done. I'm so done. What the fuck?
But wait, there's more. It just gets more and more dark.
I know. It doesn't stop there. So they drive Luis and Bior out to like the middle of nowhere, and they make them strip naked. They have them walk down a little bit like a hill, and then they pelt big ass rocks at them and kill them. And I was like, what the fuck?
And
I'm
what's
mad.
And
what's very interesting about that too is uh I think it was Bjorn or Luis asked like, why are you doing this? And Patrick is like, because you let
You
me.
let us.
right.
Yeah.
It almost felt like a callback to
The strangers.
Because you
yes.
were home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
so I was just like, wow. And again, like I said, like this could happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. It's really not that unrealistic. But that like terrifies the audience so much more because of how realistic it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't even know what to say right now. I was hoping they were going to fight and try to kill these guys, and they didn't. And I was like, oh, but then it leaves the question, of course, we see Agnes is now with Patrick and Karen, but it leaves the question like that photo of all of them together is at their home. Does anybody try to find them because they're not hearing from them? What's going to happen? You know? Oh, man.
No, man, once you cross those borders, guess if you're only inviting people from different countries and whatnot, it's I don't know. I'm not a detective. I don't know how these things work, but
Right. But it just
uh
makes you question so much.
yeah. And I really appreciate that it's thematically very much a horror film, but it
Mhm.
feels much more like a drama. Um
Yeah.
Yeah.
there are definitely moments of violence and gore, but it's not done in a horror movie way. It's done very like in a very just gross, almost documentary realist type of way. And
Right.
it's to me far more upsetting than most horror movies because it just feels mean spirited. It's
I
not a fun
yeah.
movie.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And it is kind of, I think they did it really well. It's a bit of a slow pace, but
Hmm.
it's a build up. You can see
Yeah.
just like the tiny things building up into something bigger and bigger, and kind of how that kind of stuff happens in real life. It is usually
Mhm.
something very tiny that ends up exploding into something bigger, the little steps. And I think they did a really good job with showing that. I think this is kind of getting a little off topic about it, but just the film in general, I think it was shot so beautifully. The cinematography was amazing, the locations, um, and I was even thinking, like looking at the locations, it felt like a nice, sweet little European town. Although I think when people heard he was a doctor and then saw the house, that was kind of
Hmm.
like, that's not
Huh.
usually what you would
Yeah.
expect for a doctor, but you know, the music was amazing.
Yes, I love the score. I
Yeah,
love the
Mhm.
score so much.
it was so for me when I watched this film, I went into it having no idea what it was about, and I was like, after I watched it, I was like, wow, this was a really powerful film. And kind of like how you said, Jackie, like I love films that leave me feeling, even if it's like gross or, like
Yeah.
however, because it had an impact. And this movie was one that was very disturbing, very like, I don't know. I thought it was great and definitely one that I'm always like I recommend it to people, but I'm like, just so you know, it's a little messed
Don't
up. So
hate me.
yeah,
Right.
right. So Bryn, what was your thoughts about it? Because this was I watched it for a second time and this was your first time watching it. So what
Yeah, I mean, I definitely really enjoyed it. It kept me on my toes, even with see, I felt like it was slow at the beginning, but once like they went to Patrick and Karen's home, I feel like it started really picking up. Um, I mean, of course it angered me because I was like, no, like this can't happen. Like was it was heartbreaking in so many ways, and it enraged me because it's like I want these people to be caught. Like this has happened for too long, clearly with all the pictures we saw in that one scene. And so as a whole, I would give it like a 7.5 out of 10. I really did enjoy it, but I was like,
Good.
damn, damn, it's really heartbreaking. It is.
Hmm.
yeah. And I know you talked about this a little bit, Jackie, but like what made you decide like because this film obviously had an impact on you, like how what are your say final thoughts about it, about everything with it?
Well, I think mostly I wanted. So they, Bryn and Ashley suggested that I come up with a film or a band or something that I would like to talk about on the show. And I thought of Speak No Evil because I wanted to do something that was more modern, like something that came out within the last year. And this movie, it's probably my favorite film to come out in this last several years, honestly. Um, Again, I like horror movies, but I'm maybe even more into movies that are just like really dark dramas, like really, really pitch black dark dramas. And for me, this movie just checked every box for me. I thought it looked beautiful. The score was beautiful. The performances, I just think, are fantastic.
Yeah.
Every actor has such a like distinct voice in it. The subject matter is gritty. It doesn't hold back. And I really, really like movies that don't hold back. I feel like a lot of films feel so focus grouped. Um,
Hmm.
like they try to appeal to as many people as possible. And
Mm-hmm.
I personally respect filmmaking where it seems to me like the writers slash director, they made the movie for themselves and I mean, you don't write and make a movie like this expecting the whole world to love it. I mean, you just don't. You
Right.
don't. And I respect when people make their art without regard for who it's going to piss off, who it's going to make uncomfortable. Um, it just really goes for the throat, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really excited when you picked that one because I was like that was a deep dark film.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I'm happy that you picked that one.
I just don't
And
feel like people talk about it enough. You know,
no, yeah.
um,
It was a very good recommendation. I would highly recommend it to anybody, especially if you're into horror. And of course, I would say you are because you're watching the podcast, but definitely give it a go. Wow. It is a great movie.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Yay, makes me happy.
So, Jackie, before we let you go, we want to talk about some like what upcoming things are you working on? What's going on with you now?
So right now, I'm like mid production on a couple of features right now. Films that we've shot like half of it and we've got to go back and finish up the rest of it. One of those being a a film called Wake Not the Dead, that I've been shooting out in LA. Um, it's such a fun movie, guys. I'm really excited about this one because I never really do movies that are funny. And if I do movies that are funny, I'm never the funny guy in it. I'm always like the straight character. Excuse me. And this is like the first time I've played a role where I was given freedom to just be like completely ridiculous. And I've been having so much fun with it. It's like a horror comedy. It's very violent. I can't get super spoilery on it, but we should be wrapping that soon. And then I've also been working on a film called Reaper Road, which is we'll wrap that this fall. We're like midway through the production on that, and it's kind of like a two-person drama that turns into a supernatural film. So it's very, very dialogue heavy. It's really just like these two characters talking for a lot of the film, and then, you know, shit gets weird. But that one's, I'm really excited about that one too. It's because, you know, I've done so many horror films over the years, and that's another, for some reason, I've just not done a lot of ghost supernatural type stuff. That's just I feel like you don't see a lot of that in the indie scene right now. It's
Not
not
in the
really a
indie
trend
scene.
right now, which is weird because you think horror and ghosts go hand in hand, right? So it's been fun going going into that movie, and I'm excited to finish that one later in the year because it's both of these films I'm working on this year are very unlike anything else I've ever worked on, which is always exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome because it's like a
Yeah.
bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it's been cool.
Yeah, and well, one other thing that, and I meant to say this at the beginning, but we want to congratulate you. You got married.
I did. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
So
It was a long
everybody's,
time coming.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things is that you walked down to the theme of Cannibal Holocaust. I
So
That
yeah.
yes, that is fucking baller.
You know, we didn't have like any music picked out because we just it was a small wedding. It was an inexpensive wedding. We were trying to not make it some big gala, you know, because it's that just seems too stressful to me. And I wanted to enjoy my wedding day. I didn't want to be stressed out. And it
Mhm.
was like the day before the wedding, and my parents were in town, and they're like, "So, like, what are you gonna walk down the aisle to?" And I look at Eric, my now husband, and I'm like, "Oh, we didn't think about that. Like, that's stupid that we didn't think about that." And we sat for a few minutes, and I'm just like, "What about the Cannibal Holocaust theme? Like, it's perfect, right? Because it's like this beautiful orchestral sound, but then it's Eric's a huge horror fan too. He's a filmmaker, horror filmmaker too. And so we're both just like ravenous horror fans, and so we found that it
I
was just
love that
a perfect,
so
most
much.
symbolic song for our union. So
Yeah,
it was really cool.
absolutely. I thought that was so cool when I saw that you did that. I was like, I love that, Jackie. That is so cool. And so that's awesome. Yeah, so what I want to make sure where can people follow you? Where can people check out some of your stuff?
Yeah, you can check me out. I'm looking at my apps right now, so I have Instagram. My Instagram is at actress Jackie Kelly, and I'm also on the Facebook. I have a Twitter, but I don't really do anything there. But yeah, I've got movies that are on Amazon Prime and Tubi. You can check out my most recent feature release. It's called The Man in Room Six. That's on Amazon and Tubi. It's a very, very epic fantasy horror film. We don't really know what genre it is. It's really out there, very surrealist and strange. But that's my newest one. If anyone's interested in checking that out.
Yeah, awesome. And definitely we'll make sure to link your information into the description so everybody can go and follow you and check out your work.
I
And
appreciate that.
yeah, and thank you so much. It was so great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you. It was really fun catching up with y'all and talking about that weird stuff that we do, making movies.
Yeah, and I really hope that the three of us get to work together again.
I would love that.
Yes.
That would be so awesome.
Actually, Jackie, I'm gonna have to talk to you about something after this. So
Oh, You've piqued my
Ooh.
interest. You've piqued my interest.
Keeping it slightly under wraps.
Okay.
I think
Okay,
I
let's
think
watch.
I announced it like last episode, right, Ashley?
Yes, or the episode before. I can't
One
remember.
of the two. I'm making my own movie.
Oh my God. Good for you.
So thank you. I'm really excited, but yeah, we got to chat for a sec.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie. It was so great seeing you again,
Yeah, you too.
bringing
Thank
the family together.
you.
And Bryn, would you like to sign us off?
Happily. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you again, Jackie, for coming on and chatting with us. We love you, and we'll see you guys next time. So enjoy your week.
Bye bye.
Bye.